Hey guys, I'm Ava, and let's talk about Pokemon. Today, I want to talk about Destined Rivals, which is coming out in exactly 1 month. Now, if you know me, I don't usually talk about sets before they come out, but I thought this was a bit of an interesting case, so let's talk about whether or not you should pre-order Destined Rivals and what we think the fate will be after release of this set. It's currently going for crazy premiums, upwards of $270 before release for these pre-orders, which is absolutely insane. But is the price justified? This set has been extremely hyped for a very long time. This one was leaked pretty early compared to a lot of other sets, and it's really because it's compared to the gym sets from the WotC era. And that's mostly because of the naming convention, right? We have the Rocket's Mewtwo EX and other cards like that. It is very similar in the naming and the idea of them belonging to the certain Pokemon, but really it reminds me more of a lot of the tag team alt arts where they featured the trainers back in Sun and Moon. And also just really it's like not anything new. And those comparisons to the original WotC sets are part of why this set was so hyped. A lot of people expected it to be something kind of like Celebrations, where it really is a homage to those original sets and has similar style in the art or something like that, right? We didn't really have any information, so this was all just speculation. And now that it's out, for me personally, I don't actually think it's anything special. It's kind of just a cross between the alternate arts that we saw at the end of Sun and Moon, with the trainers being featured prominently, and also, you know, a lot of just the recent like trainer gallery cards from Sword and Shield. It doesn't really feel special. Yes, they do the naming convention of like, this is this person's Pokemon, but to me, that doesn't really make it a successor to those original sets. It is very, very cool. To be clear, this is obviously a really great set. It's an extremely strong set. You know, this and Journey Together both are really, really good sets. But are these pre-order prices justified? Well, let's actually talk more about Journey Together, because I think these are really good comparisons. And then we're going to talk more broadly about my thoughts on pre-orders generally. And so Journey Together I actually paid pretty close attention to because we had pre-orders on Misprint. I saw the prices continuing to go down, but I think the set will really show the fate of what we expect from Destined Rivals, especially when you go in and look at the actual cards and the prices that they have. One argument people might make is that Journey Together doesn't have any super expensive chase cards, and I use that in a very loose sense, right? We have crazy standards right now for what counts as like an expensive chase card from the set, mostly because it's coming after, you know, Prismatic, where we have the Umbreon, and the Lilius Clefairy EX, which is the most expensive card in the set, is just under $200 right now. But when you actually look at the Japanese sets, we can kind of get an idea of what we expect the cards from Destined Rivals to be worth. So the Japanese version of Destined Rivals is Glory of Team Rocket, right? Most expensive card, of course, being the Rocket's Mewtwo EX. It's not even named after Giovanni. That would have been like so much better. But Rocket's Mewtwo EX is really expensive, and the prices on this card are actually crashing right now. If you look at what's listed, there are cards just sitting at like $330, I think, on the low end right now. And like the most recent sales were like, you know, $380, things like that, but it's just going down really quickly, and I don't think they're having very high sell-through rates because these Japanese cards do tend to drop quite quickly in price after release. And the Lilius Clefairy EX was actually going for a really similar price point at this time after the set's release, so we can kind of expect that the Rocket's Mewtwo EX will probably settle in a similar range. I think probably around the $200 mark, so really what I'm trying to say is the sets are actually pretty comparable in terms of the value of the cards inside, and also when you look at the trajectory of the set, I think it's already foreshadowing that it's just going to keep dropping. Journey Together did something similar. We saw it on the site. It went from like $250 down all the way to basically $200 right now for a box. And right now, given how crazy everything is, it's hard to say if that will continue to go down. But what I would say about Destined Rivals is that I think it will get cheaper than it is on the day of release, and certainly than it is now at pre-order. And I like really mean that, to the point where we're not even gonna run pre-orders of Destined Rivals on the Misprint site because it's so expensive right now. I just wouldn't feel right about letting people buy those and knowing that it's just gonna go down in value. And generally, the best time to buy a set is the 3-month to 2-year period after the set releases. That is when it tends to be the least hyped. There might be some reprints, there might not, but generally it will be relatively accessible, and it's within the window of time where it could be reprinted. And a lot of sets that get too expensive will get reprinted. Now, this isn't always the case, right? Evolving Skies Got some reprints, but not nearly enough to kind of battle that hype. Not that I think this is going to be as hyped. For me personally, I was a bit let down looking at the set list. I was hoping personally for more of an homage to the original Rocket and Gym Heroes and Gym Challenge sets, but we kind of knew it wouldn't be like that as soon as Journey Together dropped. Still a good set, but if you really want the hype of opening it on release, I would probably just go to like a local store and try and get some packs. I think it will still be cheaper and you can support local. But personally, I wouldn't touch it for several months. This is one of those moments where patience really pays off. Maybe on that day of release, you could open like a Journey Together box. My gut instinct is that the opening experience will be very, very similar to Journey Together, kind of like Gym Heroes and Gym Challenge, right? So that I do think is cool that they had the two sets that go together. But again, buying pre-orders is generally a really bad idea if you want to open the set on the day of release. That's the only reason I would ever see. Even with how crazy the market is right now, everything is expensive, right? Journey Together is still over $200 a box, although very close to 200, it might go lower, but certainly $275 for this set, especially when you compare it to Prismatic. Right now, it's even more expensive than Prismatic, and even Prismatic Evolutions has been dropping after release, right? If the most hyped set in all of Scarlet and Violet is continuing to go down in price, the same will happen for Destined Rivals. I'm very confident that you will be able to get this set for less money in 3 months. And if you want to get the individual cards, same thing. Those I would wait even like 6 months to up to like 3 years after release. Probably around 2 years is a really good time. It just bottoms out. Obviously, it's absolutely crazy right now, especially when it comes to sealed, but that doesn't mean we have to give in to those crazy prices. It's not missing out if you don't buy a set, even if you never get Destined Rivals, right? Like let's say it never goes down to MSRP, which is where I prefer to buy things, or below that. That's not the end of the world, right? Because what we really care about is how things change in percentages over time. I would much rather buy something that's not as hyped and have it double in value in a couple years, even if its absolute price is still lower, than buy something like this and maybe in a couple years it's worth a little bit more, but probably not going to be appreciating at some crazy rate. Hopefully that made sense. I'm gonna try and do some live streams on the channel. Hopefully one will be scheduled by the time this comes up, mostly talking more about general market, just things I find interesting, and also perhaps organizing some cards. If you guys want to support me, I highly recommend checking out misprint.com or Misprint on iOS or Android. It is my site that I made with my best friend, and it's a marketplace for graded cards that's more stock market style, so you can put in bids and asks. It's really, really good also right now when I feel like, although prices are really high, it's not necessarily that liquidity is that much higher. This is a really cash poor hobby. So really good way to buy and sell cards very quickly and get more liquidity and also get a lot of really good deals. And even if you never plan on using it to buy or sell, I highly recommend it for comping cards, especially PSA. We have an image scanner that lets you scan like up to 20 or more cards in a single photo. Just to quickly show you guys how this works, I have a bunch of slabs in front of me that I want to actually list on the site, and I also want to know the prices of. My phone's super cracked, so ignore that. And all I have to do is take a photo. I don't even know if that's a really bad photo, but let's see if it works. So you can see here are all of the slabs themselves, so you can make sure they're the right ones. You can just pause at the end of this. And so it takes a little bit, but it will show you all of the prices and also the bids and asks on the site and market prices and give you recommended prices to list at. So as you can see here, it shows the lowest ask. I actually redid this, so that's me, but I just accepted all of these. So you just press select all, and then they all can be listed or added to your collection, and it'll tell you the total value of all the ones selected. And also you can go in and view more details. So like we have this listed at 110. I think that's pretty reasonable. God, this card's gotten so right. But yeah, it's super cool. I love this feature. It's so good for at card shows when you're trying to buy or sell cards, or if you want to know if a vendor has reasonable prices, you can just check a bunch of slabs at once. I'm pretty proud of that one and actually kind of shocked that it works, but hopefully this wasn't too bad of a take. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.